David Miller stood amidst the bustling crowd at Central Park, where the autumn air was crisp and the trees whispered in the wind. The scene was a blend of excitement and anxiety as people from all over New York City gathered, their eyes fixed on the sky. "Look, they're almost here," shouted a young boy, tugging at his father's coat. David turned to his colleague, Michael, who was setting up a video camera on a tripod. "Can you believe we're witnessing this, Mike? First contact? It's actually happening." Michael grinned, adjusting the lens. "Never thought I'd see the day. You ready to meet our new neighbors?" As the murmurs grew into a collective anticipation, a series of sleek, silver objects descended from the sky, slowing to a hover above the park. The crowd gasped and cheered as the objects landed gently on the grass. David and Michael made their way closer, just as the hatch of the nearest ship began to open. A ramp descended, and 3 figures emerged. They were tall, with shimmering blue skin and eyes that gleamed with a curious light. "Greetings, people of Earth," one of the aliens announced, her voice echoing through a device that translated her words. "I am Commander Ilara from the planet Thaler. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." David stepped forward, his hand raised in a gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Earth, Commander Ilara. I'm David Miller, an anthropologist, and this is Michael Chen, a videographer. We hope to learn from each other." Ilara nodded, her gaze lingering on the small devices and cameras pointing at her. "We are eager to understand your culture. Why are these devices directed at us?" Michael chuckled, holding up his camera. "These help us capture important moments so we can remember and share them. This is a historic day for us." Ilara's eyes widened in understanding. "Ah, recording history. We do something similar with our mind archives." Another alien, who introduced himself as Torin, stepped forward. "What are your primary tools for survival?" David thought for a moment, then smiled. "Come with me, I'll show you some." Leading the group to a nearby museum, David started with the basics of human technology. "Here we have everything from early tools used by our ancestors to the latest in tech. But let's start with the simple stuff, which has its own elegance." Ilara and Torin examined an ancient bow and arrows with interest. David picked up the bow, stringing it with practiced ease. "This might seem primitive to you, but it's been a vital part of our history." Torin touched the arrow's tip, then looked at David. "May we see how it functions?" "Of course," David said, leading them outside to a safely cordoned area. He notched an arrow, pulled back the string, and released it, sending the arrow flying into a target 50 yards away. Ilara clapped her hands, clearly impressed. "Your aim is remarkable, David." "It's all about understanding the tool and respecting its purpose," David replied, handing the bow to Ilara. "Would you like to try?" As Ilara mimicked David's movements, the crowd watched in silence, captivated by the exchange. She released the arrow, hitting just outside the bullseye. Cheers erupted from the humans gathered. Laughing, Ilara handed the bow back to David. "Your tools are indeed effective, David. We may have much to learn from each other." "That's the hope," David agreed, feeling the first true stirrings of what this interstellar meeting might yield. Today is just the beginning. As they walked back to the crowd, David and Michael exchanged a look. This was more than just a first contact. It was the start of something transformative, not just for them but for humanity itself. The next morning, David and Michael, along with a team of experts, assembled in a large conference room at the United Nations headquarters, preparing for a more formal exchange with the Thalorian delegates. The room buzzed with a mix of languages and the clinking of coffee cups as representatives from around the globe gathered. As Ilara and her team entered, the room quieted. David rose, extending a hand. "Welcome, Commander Ilara, Torin, and your team. Today we hope to dive deeper into our cultures." Ilara nodded, her gaze sweeping across the diverse human faces. "We are grateful for this opportunity, David. Shall we begin?" David gestured to a series of displays set up around the room, each representing different facets of human civilization, art, technology, science, and governance. "We thought a good starting point would be our history. Understanding where we come from is essential to knowing who we are today." Michael chimed in, leading the group to the first display, which featured replicas of ancient tools and artifacts. "These are some of our earliest tools, simple but crucial for our survival and development." Torin picked up a replica of a flint tool, examining it closely. "Interesting. We have similar beginnings. Our early tools were also quite rudimentary." The conversation flowed as they moved from display to display. David introduced them to the concept of democracy. Here we have a series of documents and texts that outline the evolution of governance in human societies. A Tellurian named Lyra, a historian in her right, was particularly intrigued. You have a variety of governing systems. Ours is more unified, but the diversity here is fascinating. They then approached a section dedicated to human conflict and peace. While we have had our share of conflicts, David explained, looking earnestly at the Tellurians, we also strive for peace and unity. It's a complex part of our nature. Understanding conflict is as important as understanding peace, Ilara responded thoughtfully. We, too, have had to navigate these waters in our history. The final station was dedicated to human achievements in science and technology. Michael, with a sparkle in his eye, showcased advancements from the wheel to space travel. And here we are, meeting beings from another world. It shows how far we've come. The Tellurians were visibly impressed, especially with the space exploration segment. You've achieved much in a relatively short time, Torin noted. It speaks volumes about your species' capabilities. As the formal presentations wound down, David invited the Tellurians to a more casual setting for lunch where they could interact on a more personal level. The dining hall was filled with small round tables, each adorned with Earth delicacies and Tellurian food samples brought aboard their ship. Sitting down with Ilara and Torin, David initiated a more relaxed conversation. Ilara, what are your impressions so far? Ilara, sampling a piece of sushi, smiled. Your world is rich with complexity and beauty, and yet you hold so many contrasts within a single species. It's quite extraordinary. Michael, who had joined another table with Lyra, discussed potential collaborative projects. Imagine what we could learn from each other's science and technology, he suggested enthusiastically. As the lunch progressed, conversations delved into less formal topics, such as music, sports, and even fashion. The Tellurians shared snippets of their own culture, including a musical instrument that produced sounds based on light. As the chapter closed, David reflected on the day's exchanges. He felt a profound connection building, not just in terms of knowledge, but in understanding and respect. The initial uncertainty had given way to curiosity and anticipation of what the future might hold, as both cultures continued to learn from each other. The cultural exchange had moved beyond the confines of formal presentations, and was now entering a phase where personal interactions were beginning to shape the understanding between the humans and Tellurians. David had organized a series of workshops, each designed to focus on deeper cultural elements like art, language, and daily customs. In a bright, spacious room filled with various art supplies, David and Ilara stood side by side, each holding a paintbrush. Today, we're going to try something a bit different, David explained, his brush poised over a blank canvas. We'll paint something that symbolizes our planet to each of us. It's a way to express what might not be expressible in words. Ilara dipped her brush in a vibrant blue, the color reflecting her home planet's dominant hue. On Taylor, art is a communal activity. It's how we resolve conflicts and share joys. That's fascinating, David replied, starting with earthy greens and blues on his canvas. Here it can be both personal and communal. It can provoke thought, invoke peace, or even stir controversy. Across the room, Michael and Torin were engaged in a discussion about language. So you use this device to translate instantly? Michael asked, pointing to the small gadget at Torin's waist. Torin nodded, handing it over. Yes, it analyzes brain waves and vocal patterns to produce real-time translation. It's not perfect, but gets the job done. Michael turned the device over in his hands, impressed. Language is such a crucial part of culture. Understanding it is key to understanding a people. Exactly, Torin agreed, his eyes lighting up. Perhaps you'd like to try speaking some basic Tellurian? Michael laughed. I'd love to, but you might need to correct my pronunciation a lot. So swear. A group of human chefs and Tellurian nutritionists gathered in a kitchen, exchanging recipes and techniques. David joined them after cleaning his brushes, intrigued by the culinary exchange. A chef named Marco was demonstrating how to knead dough for bread. Bread is a staple in many Earth cultures, he explained, his hands expertly shaping the dough. A Tellurian nutritionist, Fina, watched intently before trying her hand at it. We have a similar food, but it's made from a root on our planet. It's more about the texture than the taste for us. David smiled, seeing the mutual curiosity and enthusiasm. It's these everyday things that really show how alike we can be, despite our differences. As the day progressed, David and Alara found themselves back in the art room, looking at each other's paintings. Alara's canvas was a swirl of blues and silvers, evoking a sense of calm and depth. "It's beautiful," David remarked sincerely. "You've captured something very serene about Thaler." Alara looked at David's depiction of Earth, a vibrant mix of greens, blues, and browns interspersed with bursts of diverse colors representing humanity. "And you've shown your world's vibrancy and diversity. It's very lively." Their eyes met, and there was a moment of silent acknowledgement of the growing bond between them. David broke the silence. "Would you like to try another human experience tomorrow? Maybe something outdoors?" Alara nodded eagerly. "I would like that. Your planet's natural environment is quite different from ours. It would be educational." "Great," David smiled. "We'll plan for a hike. It's a good way to see Earth's natural beauty firsthand." As the participants started cleaning up, there was a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The day had been filled with learning and exchange, setting a foundation for deeper understanding and respect. David felt a profound sense of satisfaction as he watched humans and Thalorians laughing and sharing stories, the lines between them blurring as they bonded over shared experiences and mutual curiosity. The next day, under a clear blue sky, David and Alara led a group of humans and Thalorians on a hike through a scenic national park near the city. The natural beauty of Earth was on full display, with lush greenery, wildflowers, and the sound of a nearby stream flowing gently. As they walked, David pointed out various plants and explained their ecological roles. "This is called an oak tree," he said, touching the rough bark. "It can live for hundreds of years and supports numerous species within its ecosystem." Alara listened intently, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "Thaler has nothing like this. Our flora is less varied but more adapted to our climate extremes." Michael, who had joined with his camera gear, filmed the interaction. "It's amazing how different our worlds are, yet here we are, walking together." As they reached a clearing, David suggested, "Let's take a break here. We can enjoy the view and maybe share some stories about our planets." The group settled down, and Torin took the opportunity to talk about Thalorian landscapes. "Our mountains are mostly ice, with deep crevices that change shape with the seasons." The humans listened with fascination until Marco, one of the chefs from the previous day's culinary exchange, decided to lighten the mood with a joke. "Sounds like a great place for cold storage." He laughed, not realizing his humor might not translate well. The laughter from the humans echoed around, but the Thalorians looked confused and slightly offended. Alara furrowed her brow. "Is your humor always about making light of others' homes?" David, realizing the potential faux pas, quickly intervened. "Oh no, Marco didn't mean any disrespect, Alara. Humor can be tricky between different cultures. We sometimes use it to make the unfamiliar more relatable." Alara nodded slowly, her expression softening. "I see. We use humor too, but it's more about playfulness with words rather than situations." Michael chimed in, trying to bridge the gap. "Maybe we can share some of that wordplay. It could be a good learning experience." Alara smiled, appreciating the effort to smooth things over. "Sure, I can teach you some simple Thalorian puns. Our language has many homophones, which makes for interesting jokes." The group spent the next hour exchanging simple jokes and puns from their respective languages, with plenty of missteps, but also much laughter. The mood lightened considerably, and the earlier misunderstanding seemed to fade away. After the break, David suggested a small game. "Let's do a photo challenge. Everyone take pictures of something that strikes you as beautiful or unique, and we'll share what we found and why we chose it." The Thalorians were intrigued by the idea, and everyone dispersed with their cameras or recording devices. Later, gathering around the displayed photos, they discussed their perspectives on beauty and landscape. One photo taken by Torin showed a small flower growing out of a rock. "I chose this because it symbolizes resilience, life finding a way, even in tough conditions." David selected a photo of the stream they had passed. "Water is vital on Earth. It sustains life, and its sound is considered soothing to us." As the day concluded, David reflected on the successful recovery from the misunderstanding. "Today was a great example of how we can find common ground, even when things don't start perfectly." Alara agreed. "Yes, learning about each other's sensitivities and senses of humor is as important as sharing our landscapes and languages." They headed back, talking and planning the next day's activities, each feeling more connected through their shared experiences and the lessons learned about navigating cultural nuances. As the cultural exchange progressed, the human and Tellurian participants began exploring more personal and sensitive aspects of respective cultures. David organized an evening dedicated to understanding human emotional expressions through art and music, aiming to foster deeper connection and mutual understanding. The venue was a small auditorium, softly lit with ambient lights to set a calming atmosphere. David and Michael were setting up, checking the sound system and arranging chairs in a semicircle for an intimate setting. Ilara and Torin arrived early, accompanied by other Tellurians curious about the night's activities. David greeted them with a warm smile. Tonight, we're focusing on the art specifically, music and visual art, as expressions of human emotions. Ilara looked around, noting the preparations. We are eager to learn how emotions are woven into your culture's art. But David led everyone to their seats and started the evening with a short talk about the importance of art in human history. Art and music are not just for decoration or entertainment. They are vital for expressing what sometimes cannot be said in words. Michael then took the stage to introduce the first performance. A string quartet began playing a piece that was both melancholic and uplifting. As the music swelled, the room fell silent, save for the haunting melody that filled the space. After the performance, David facilitated a discussion. How did that piece make you feel? Did it bring any specific thoughts or emotions? Torin responded thoughtfully. It felt like a journey through sadness that found a hopeful end. Is that what was intended? David nodded. Exactly. It's about expressing a range of emotions and eventually finding a resolution. Next, the group moved to another part of the room where several paintings and sculptures were displayed. David explained each piece, discussing the emotions and historical context behind them. As they approached a sculpture depicting two humans in an embrace, Ilara asked, "What does this represent?" This is about human connection, love, friendship, support. Touch is very important in human relationships, David explained, his voice softening. Ilara's gaze lingered on the sculpture. In Tellurian culture, touch is not as common. We are more reserved with physical expressions. David sensed an opportunity for a deeper exchange. Would you like to learn about it? Nothing too personal, just basic gestures like handshakes, hugs. Ilara considered it, then nodded. Yes, I think understanding this would help us grasp the emotional depth of your people. David demonstrated a gentle handshake, explaining its significance in greetings and agreements. Then, he showed a simple hug, which Michael volunteered to demonstrate with him. Would you like to try? David asked Ilara, offering his hand first for a handshake. Ilara reciprocated the handshake, her touch cautious but curious. Encouraged by the respectful approach, she then accepted a light, friendly hug. It's a very warming feeling, she remarked, a slight smile touching her lips. The evening continued with more music, including a piano solo that evoked a serene atmosphere. The Tellurians in turn shared a traditional vocal melody from their culture, its complex harmonies filling the room with a different kind of emotional expression. As the event concluded, David and Ilara lingered, discussing their thoughts on the evening. I've learned much about human emotions tonight, Ilara said thoughtfully. Your willingness to express and share these through art is very powerful. David smiled, pleased with the outcome, and we've learned from you as well. The exchange goes both ways. The night had indeed deepened their understanding, bridging gaps not just through words, but through the universal languages of art and emotion. As they said their goodnights, there was a sense of closeness that had not been there before, a testament to the power of cultural exchange and the simple human touch. After several days of cultural exchanges and personal interactions, David decided to invite the Tellurians to visit a prominent research facility to demonstrate human advances in technology and science. He believed that showcasing human ingenuity would provide a new layer of understanding and respect between the two species. David, along with Michael and a team of scientists, greeted Ilara and her delegation early in the morning at the entrance of the facility. The air was crisp, and the sun cast a golden hue over the sleek, modern architecture of the building. Welcome to our research hub, David announced as they passed through the high-security gates. Today we'll show you some of the cutting-edge technologies we're working on, especially in energy and environmental sciences. Ilara, ever curious, nodded appreciatively. We're eager to see how your technology compares with ours, especially in these critical areas. The first stop was the renewable energy sector, where a scientist named Dr. Jensen introduced the latest in solar cell technology. These cells are not just efficient, they're almost fully biodegradable. Sustainability is key for us, he explained, showing them a small, flexible solar panel. Torn was visibly impressed. Remarkable. Our solar technology is advanced, but we haven't focused much on biodegradability. What inspired this direction? Dr. Jensen smiled. Our planet's health is a priority. We've learned hard lessons from past mistakes. Now, we're trying to heal and improve with every innovation. See, next they visited a lab where geneticists were working on crop resilience to changing climate conditions. David introduced the head geneticist, Dr. Harrow, who was experimenting with DNA sequencing to enhance crop yields without chemical interventions. As you see here, Dr. Harrow explained while showing them through a microscope, we can edit the genetic structure to make the plants more adaptable to extreme weather. It's still in trial phases, but the results are promising. Ilara turned to David, her expression thoughtful. This could be beneficial for Thaler as well. We face similar challenges with our food supply due to climate extremes. David nodded. Perhaps there's potential for a collaborative project. Sharing knowledge could lead to breakthroughs benefiting both our worlds. The group moved on to an environmental monitoring center, where they were shown real-time data feeds from various global observation points. Michael, taking a more active role, engaged Ilara in a discussion about the implications of this technology. We use this data to predict weather patterns and natural disasters. It helps us prepare and minimize damage, Michael explained, pointing at the multiple screens displaying complex weather models. Ilara, fascinated, responded, we have similar systems, but your integration of different data types is more extensive. There's much we can learn from each other. As the tour concluded, the group gathered in a conference room where David facilitated a roundtable discussion. Today's visit highlighted how our technologies could work together. What are your thoughts on future collaborations? Ilara, who had been taking notes, looked up. I see many opportunities for synergy. Your approaches to sustainability and technology could greatly enhance our own efforts. We should consider joint research initiatives. David agreed. Absolutely. Let's draft some ideas and potential projects. We could start small, with exchanges of scientists and data, and build from there. The mood in the room was optimistic as everyone began to brainstorm potential areas for collaboration. The discussion was lively, with both humans and Tellurians contributing ideas that bridged their technological gaps. As they left the facility, David felt a sense of accomplishment. The day had not only showcased human achievements but had also opened the door for mutual growth and cooperation. So the future, he believed, was looking brighter with each shared discovery and exchanged idea. The cultural exchange program was drawing to a close, and David planned a final evening to celebrate the weeks of successful interaction and newfound friendships between the humans and Tellurians. The setting was a beautiful outdoor garden, adorned with lights, where guests could enjoy Earth's natural beauty under the stars. As the guests began to arrive, David checked the arrangements one last time, ensuring that the night would be perfect. He spotted Ilara walking towards him, her expression one of serene anticipation. Everything looks wonderful, David, Ilara commented as she approached, her eyes taking in the softly glowing lights and the elegantly set tables. Thank you, Ilara. I wanted our last evening together to be special, David replied, offering her his arm as they walked towards the other guests. Michael was already mingling, camera in hand, to capture the moments. He greeted them with a smile. This is going to be a great night. I can feel it. The evening started with a speech from David. Standing at the front, he addressed the gathering. Over the past few weeks, we've shared knowledge, laughter, and even our challenges. Tonight, let's celebrate the bridges we've built. Dinner was served, featuring a fusion of Earth and Tellurian cuisines, crafted by chefs from both worlds to symbolize their collaborative efforts. As they dined, conversations buzzed around the tables, with discussions ranging from future exchanges to personal stories shared during their time together. After the meal, a small orchestra began to play, and David invited Ilara to dance. The music was a gentle blend of earthly instruments and Tellurian harmonics, creating a melody that was both unfamiliar and enchanting. As they danced, Ilara spoke softly. David, this exchange has been more than I ever expected. I've learned so much, not just about humanity, but about myself and what it means to truly connect with others. David nodded, his hand gently resting on her back. I feel the same. It's been an eye-opening experience. The bond we've formed, it's something I never anticipated. The dance floor slowly filled with other pairs, and the night air echoed with music and laughter. The mood was joyful yet bittersweet, as everyone knew this magical evening was a prelude to farewells. As the music slowed, David and Ilara stepped aside, their conversation turning more personal. "What will you remember most about Earth?" David asked, looking into Ilara's eyes. "The beauty of your planet is unforgettable, but it's the warmth of its people that I'll carry with me." Ilara responded, her voice tinged with emotion. "And I will always remember how you showed us that understanding is the foundation of friendship," David replied, his tone sincere. The evening concluded with a final toast, led by Michael. "To new friends and new beginnings. May the stars always light our paths to each other." Glasses clinked, and the Tellurians responded with their traditional salute, a gentle nod that spoke volumes of their respect and gratitude. As the guests began to depart, David and Ilara lingered, not quite ready to say goodbye. "We should look at the stars one last time," Ilara suggested, leading David away from the dwindling crowd to a quiet spot where they could gaze at the night sky. They stood together, watching the stars twinkle above, a silent testament to the vastness of the universe and the tiny, precious connections within it. "This isn't goodbye, Ilara. It's just until next time," David said, his voice hopeful. "Yes, until next time," Ilara agreed, her hand squeezing his briefly before they parted ways, the night etching a lasting memory of shared understanding and quiet affection in their hearts. The morning after the farewell celebration, the atmosphere at the gathering site was subdued yet filled with a sense of accomplishment. David and Michael were there early, overseeing the preparations for the Tellurians' departure. The air was tinged with a chill that hinted at the coming change of seasons and, metaphorically, the change in their interstellar relationships. As Ilara and her team arrived, clad in their sleek travel attire, their appearance stark against the more casual human farewell crew, David approached with a smile, albeit a somber one. "Ilara, today feels bittersweet," he admitted as they met. Ilara nodded, her expression mirroring his. "Indeed, David, leaving is harder than I anticipated. The bonds we've formed here are not easily forgotten." Michael joined them, camera slung over his shoulder, though it seemed he'd use it less today. "You know, I never thought I'd make friends with someone from another galaxy. This has been the shoot of a lifetime." The group moved towards the landing area where the Tellurian ships were preparing for takeoff. Torin and other members of the Tellurian delegation were already there, exchanging quiet words and handshakes with other members of the human team. David turned to Ilara. "Before you leave, there's something I want to give you." He handed her a small, beautifully crafted box. Inside was a miniature replica of the sculpture of two humans embracing, symbolizing connection. Ilara was visibly touched, carefully examining the small statue. "Thank you, David. This means a great deal to me. I will place it in our council hall, where everyone can see and remember." As they walked towards the ship, Ilara stopped and looked back at the Earth's horizon. "I used to think of Earth as just another assignment. Now it feels like a part of my universe." David smiled warmly. "And you're always welcome back, Ilara. Remember, distance is just a measure of space, not connectivity." Michael piped up, "And hey, don't be strangers. Maybe we can set up some kind of regular communication, share updates, photos, science stuff." Torin, overhearing the conversation, added, "We have been discussing with your leaders the establishment of a communication link. It seems very promising." David was pleased. "That's fantastic. Continuous sharing of knowledge and culture could open up so many doors for both our worlds." Finally, it was time to say goodbye. The Tellurians boarded their ship, turning for one last wave. Ilara looked back at David and Michael, her hand raised in farewell. The ship's engines began to hum, a soft but powerful sound that slowly grew to a roar. As the ships lifted off, soaring into the blue sky and beyond into the blackness of space, David felt a profound sense of achievement and hope. He watched until the ships were just specks of light, disappearing into the vast cosmos. Turning to Michael, he said, "Well, back to our regular lives, huh?" Michael laughed. "Yeah, but with a few more alien friends and a lot more perspective. Let's get back to the lab. There's a lot of work to do, and I have a feeling we'll be busier than ever." David nodded, looking up once more where the Tellurian ships had vanished. "Yeah, let's keep pushing forward. There's a whole universe out there waiting to be understood." With that, they walked back towards their vehicle, talking about the next steps, their conversation filled with plans for future projects and hopes of a reunion under the stars. The exchange might have ended, but it was just the beginning of a larger journey, one that would continue to shape their lives and the future interactions between humanity and the stars above.